Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is just going to be kind of like a chit chat type of video. It's not necessarily going to be about drama, but just about like some observations that I've made about the pop girlies recently, and I just want to talk about it because I think that this is so interesting and I clocked it. I'm just gonna say I told you so now. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, and what is happening with like teenage girls in the music industry right now, especially those two, specifically those two. Really, we're just going to be talking about those two. But I just think that it's such an interesting conversation to be had, especially given Billie Eilish's last album drop, which I'm also going to touch on and talk about how I felt about the album and everything like that. But anyways, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but you'll get what I'm saying when I get there. But before you do get into it, please go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Turn on the post notifications so that you are notified of the next time that I post a video. And follow me on Twitter. My Twitter will be in the description below. I think that's it. Okay, let's get to the video. So I just want to start this off by saying that at this point, I'm kind of indifferent to Olivia Rodrigo and Billie Eilish. This video is mainly going to be about Billie Eilish, so really, let's just talk about Billie. I'm rather indifferent. I kind of like Billie. I remember listening to her music when I was like a senior in high school, so junior in high school, so that's gonna be like yikes, 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, that I started listening to Billie. I thought that she was unique. I thought her voice was unique, and I liked her sound, but I only liked a few of her songs. Like, it wasn't anything serious. And then as she kept growing with stardom and fame and I kept seeing her, I was like, okay, wow, like she's popping off. And then when she dropped When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go, I listened to it and I did not like the album. Let's start there. When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We All Go, I did not feel like was a great album. The way that other people were kind of saying that it was a great album, the way it has all of this acclaim and she broke records and she's getting Grammys, I never thought it was that good of an album. I didn't think it was a bad album. I just didn't get the hype. I felt like there were a lot of songs on there that sounded way too similar. It was way too slow. And then the fast songs like Bad Guy, I really disliked that song. I thought that song was honestly very bad. And then some of the faster songs on there, I forget them because I've listened to that album actually a few times just to try to get into it, and I never got into it. They just didn't sound... Sometimes I think that her songs don't sound full, if that makes sense. Sometimes sonically, I think it just needs more instruments. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not like a musician, but I do have some type of musical, I don't know. And sometimes with her music, I feel like it doesn't sound very full. So like with Bad Guy, it just kind of sounded like noises like compiled together, but it didn't really sound like sonically full. And side note, that's how I felt about Brent Faiyaz's last album, his last album that he made. When I listened to it, I was like, this doesn't sound like that full to me. And then the songs that did sound like fuller, like that had more instruments, I really enjoyed. So that's just kind of my preference, I guess. But her more stripped down music isn't that enticing, intriguing. I don't really like it sonically that much, but there are some songs from her that I really, really love. Like, what's that one song? My Future. Oh my gosh. I remember at my last job, I remember singing that so much. Like, I love that song. Okay, anyways. So with Billie, I felt like her last era, I felt like she was definitely way overhyped. Now, why is that? I think that Billie Eilish was overhyped because she was a white teenage girl who wrote her music and made her music. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. I think that a lot of the times we hype up teenage girls, specifically white teenage girls, if we're gonna be honest here, if we're gonna be frank, if we're gonna be real, if we're gonna be adults, we hype up teenage girls because we feel like, oh, they can't do it. Like, we're shocked and super surprised when teenage girls can write their own music and create their own music and are actually like musicians, writers, things like that. You know, we're not surprised when they can sing, but we're surprised when they can write, or at least the general public is. I feel like that's the kind of treatment that Taylor Swift still gets, because people still look at her as being like really young, and they still kind of look at her as like 19-year-old Taylor Swift who is writing all of her music, and people are like, wow, such an accomplishment. Which, yes, like, you're definitely very talented if you write all of your music, of course, but I think that there's also that element of like, we didn't expect you to because you're a teenage girl. And Billy's white, and you know, she's a pretty white girl at the end of the day, and she makes music, especially Billy. In Billy's case, she makes very like alt music that people aren't expecting from a white girl from the suburbs in LA. Like, you don't expect that from her, so people really ate it up. I feel like people also kind of still try to give Hayley Williams that treatment. Hayley Williams of Paramore. People still kind of look at her as like, oh my gosh, like this girl that has this big loud voice, and you know, they kind of underestimate young women, and we need to stop doing that. Not only is that an annoying thing that we do, just because it's like, why are we underestimating people? Like, people are people are people. It's not like we have like, young women don't have like less intelligence. Like, come on, we're just young women. Like, that's just who we are. Doesn't mean that like we suddenly can't make music or we can't write music for ourselves or anything like that. But it also leads to us hyping up music that might be mediocre. And that is how I felt about When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We All Go? Now, again, that album had so much hype that I felt like, okay, now Billy's career is gonna go one of two ways. Her sophomore album is going to kill it, or her sophomore album is going to flop and people are gonna kind of see through it. This is also how I feel about Olivia Rodrigo. I feel like Olivia Rodrigo right now is at that stage where it's like, okay, you had this era where you made an album about Joshua Bassett. You made an album about Joshua Bassett, which honestly, good for you as a bop. Okay, the rest of the album, yeah, I felt like kind of all sounded the same, but that's okay, whatever. That's how I felt about Billy's. You know, they're very similar. There's a reason why they're compared. You made this album, you did this era, it was super successful, now what? And the thing is that these girls, they cannot hold on to the fact that they're girls for that much longer. Billie Eilish is now 19. She's turning, I think, 20 this year. Olivia Rodrigo just turned 18. She still has a little time, but soon she's going to be in Billy's position where people start looking at her as like a woman, you know? You're going to be a woman at some point. And the thing that I think separates Billie Eilish from Taylor Swift is that Taylor Swift had a smash sophomore album. I don't feel that way about Billie. I think Billie is flopping. Now, people are going to pull out streams and this and that and the fourth, and they're going to pull out whatever they want to pull out. But at the end of the day, if this is how I feel, if your sophomore album is not doing the same numbers as your freshman album, especially for someone who's still relatively new, Billie is still new to the industry. She doesn't have that much in her discography. It's not like, you know, if Justin Bieber has a flop album, like Changes was kind of a flop album. Even though it had its like hits, it was still kind of a flop album. But that was what, his 6th studio album? He can afford a flop, right? Like, he can afford a flop. However, with Billie, it's your 2nd, and people are looking for something different from you. This is your defining moment, and the thing that I think separates Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, and might separate Olivia Rodrigo from both of them, or one of them, or is your sophomore album. People always say that your sophomore album either makes you or breaks you, and Billie's sophomore album, I liked more than I actually liked When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We All Go? And I thought that she did change it up, but it's kind of flopping. We can see it's not doing as well as her first album did, and I think that's for a few reasons. So let's just go over Happier Than Ever. My personal review is that I did like it. I did enjoy the album more than I enjoyed her first album. I felt like this album definitely had a more mature sound. I thought that her vocals were better on this album. I thought that she explored her vocals more, especially in the title track, Happier Than Ever. Honestly, I heard that song on TikTok and I did not even know it was Billie. Like, before I listened to the album, I heard the song on TikTok and then I was like, oh wait, that's Billie? Like, that is what we want. But I think that we're not getting enough of that. Too much of the album sounded like it could have been on her first album, and that's not really what we're looking for. And I think that that's for a few reasons. One, she needs to drop Phineas. Ooh, okay, I love families. Like, I love family. Like, I love when families do everything together. Like, I love that. I don't want to break up a family, but the production has not gotten better. With, again, I'm gonna draw the comparison between her and Taylor Swift, because I just think that in the past few years, Taylor Swift is one of those girls that, you know, she got the same hype for kind of the same reasons. So I'm gonna make that comparison. If you have better comparisons, please drop them in the comment section down below, because this is the only one that I can come up with. I don't think Ariana Grande fits. I don't think other pop girls kind of fit, but I think Taylor Swift does. Taylor Swift's production from her first album to her second album got better. Like, it definitely got better. You can see the growth. With Billie, the growth is kind of stunted. It seems like she's growing, and it's like you can see a little bit of it. Like, you can see it in My Future, you can see it in Happier Than Ever, but then you kind of see her backtrack, and you end up with songs that sound like they could have been on the first album. Now, it doesn't mean that the songs are bad, no, but does it mean that the songs should be on this album, or that the songs are maybe right for her sophomore album? No, I don't think so. And this album is also her debut as a legal adult, even though she's not really an adult, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, okay, we see the aesthetics have completely changed, but has the sound changed? Has the sound progressed or matured or evolved? And I can't say that it necessarily has. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they're still doing the same thing that they've been doing since she was 14 years old. If you keep making the music the same way, you're going to come out with the same product. And I think as Billie elevates her sound, she has to elevate her production as well. If she keeps making music with Phineas, it's gonna keep sounding the same. So I think it's time for Billie to kind of be at this crossroads where it's like, okay, should I really take my artistry to a different level? Not even necessarily, let's say, the next level. Because I think Phineas is a good writer. Like, I think that they make a good duo. But should I take it to a different level where I sound different? I don't know. I just kind of feel like her music kind of has been sounding the same. Also, her droplets before she dropped the album, I felt like they were also just not hitting the way that they should have. The singles, they didn't give the way that the last album kind of gave singles. So all in all, as far as the music is concerned itself, I did not think that Happier Than Ever was a bad album. But I don't think that it gave the way it should have given. I just don't. Now, moving on from the music, we have Billie's kind of aesthetic change. She is now in kind of like her Sweetener moment. If we remember Sweetener and we remember the aesthetics, it's giving very much Sweetener. It's giving very much stripped down, nude, naked, whatever, right? And blonde Billie, right? Now, the thing about that, I think, with the aesthetic change is that it's like, okay, so what are you going to talk about? Like, what is this album going to sound like? I think that a lot of her stans are also growing up with her, but still kind of want like the alt Billie. And so the aesthetic change might have something to do with just how this era is not doing as well. I think people might miss black and green hair Billie, or even people that are just like casual fans might miss that, and they might not really vibe with the new aesthetic change. Because when you do an aesthetic change that's kind of that stark, it's not like super stark of a difference, but it's stark enough, I think that you're gonna kind of lose people along the way. You might gain people along the way, but you might also lose people. So I don't know, the aesthetic change, I actually vibe with it. I like it. I think it's pretty. I love the cover. I think it's so pretty. But some people might not like it. Some people might like darker, more alt Billy. And then I think the third reason why this era isn't doing as well, the reason why people aren't talking about it as much, the reason why it's not selling out the way that it was selling out back then when she dropped her first album, is because of her scandals. It seems like ever since Billie has kind of gotten big and gotten to that point when she dropped that album and everyone's going crazy over her, it was just kind of thing after thing after thing about Billie. So the racism scandals came out where she was like making fun of this race and that race, and I think she said the N-word, or maybe she said something like that. I know that she definitely used a few different slurs. And then people, like, I recently just saw a TikTok where someone was calling Billie a gentrifier, and people were just like ripping into her. Like, I was like, wow, I've never really seen people talk about Billie like this. Also, I think something that's notable to me is the fact that like these young girls, they date like older guys who definitely have very bad pasts. So with Billie, she's dating this guy right now who has he has some things in his past which you should look up. I'm not really 100% sure because I don't really care about who she dates that much, but I do know that people really don't like it and they feel like she needs to address what her partner does, which I don't necessarily believe that that's 100% true, but that's what a lot of people are saying. So with her past coupled with her boyfriend's past, it's not a good mixture. People are also calling Billie out for black scents that she was using for a long time during her interviews and like during her career. But I think her fans are getting older and they have their pitchforks out and they're ready to just look back and be like, oh wait, we're being hypocrites for calling these people out but not calling you out for your past actions that we were okay with when we were 16, but now we're 19 or whatever and we're not okay with it. So I think her fandom and just like a lot of people who used to like her are doing this to her, but at the end of the day, people are calling her out for a lot of her scandals. This is how I feel. She's 19. She's 19 years old. A lot of the stuff that people are bringing up is like from when she was 15, 16. Does that excuse her behavior? Not necessarily, but at the end of the day, I think that we need to reevaluate cancel culture and we need to reevaluate holding people accountable, because it's getting to a point where it's just like anyone can be canceled for anything at any age, and I don't think that that's fair. Especially like teenagers. Like, you remember when you were a teenager. I remember when I was a teenager. We were not we would have gotten canceled for things we said every single day at school. And the fact that Billie was such a young teenager and social media was so poppin' when she became a teenager and so poppin' when, you know, she had that big level of fame and that everything that she did was under a microscope, is on film, that gives no one a chance to grow. And honestly, calling someone out for certain things that she did and getting out your pitchforks for some of the things that she did, which I don't think are that serious. I mean, they might be problematic, but I don't think that they're that serious. It might create resentment, and it might make that person just like shut down and not even want to learn and not even want to hear people out. And do I think that Billie Eilish is racist or anything? No, I don't. I think that she's just a girl who might have saw internet trends and wanted to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to like let up on her. But I do think that these things did contribute to people kind of disliking Billie. So I think that overall, I think that Billie is not doing as well as she might have thought that she would. And I think that it's for those reasons that I listed. I think that she's like definitely by no means not successful. Like, she's completely successful, and nothing that I'm saying in here will ever negate that. But I do think that kind of the decline of her success has a lot to do with those factors that I mentioned before. Now, let's move on to Olivia Rodrigo. I think that Olivia Rodrigo is probably going to run into this problem. I said this about Billie Eilish. I remember kind of saying this and kind of thinking this, like, we need to wait for her sophomore album, because people are doing a lot with her right now and they're acting as if she's like the end all to be all, but like, let's wait for the sophomore album. Sophomore albums are what make or break people, I'm telling you. Like Justin Bieber, for example. Justin Bieber, his sophomore album, we could say that his sophomore album was either My World 2.0 or Believe, because people kind of lump the My World era into one. But if it was Believe, he had smash hits on that album. If it's My World 2.0, he had smash hits, and things were like, his sound was progressing. So his sophomore album made him, like, he just streamlined into like, okay, hey, like, that's superstardom right there. As far as, again, Taylor Swift, great example to me. You know, her first album did pretty well. It did pretty well with like country pop, and then Fearless was just a smash. So you see how that went. Ariana Grande, we look at Yours Truly, right? That first album had hits on it. That first album really established her. And then My Everything went to a different level with Problem, with all of these different hits that she had on that album. And I could name, like, over and over again, just all of these different people who had really great sophomore albums that kind of catapulted them. So I think with Olivia Rodrigo, we're going to have to see if she has a great sophomore album, because what if she comes out with an album that sounds just like the last one? Which the last one, I only have one song from that album, so we know how that went. And I listened to the entire album, but I just felt like it kind of all sounded the same, and it was about Joshua Bassett. I couldn't get that out of my mind, and it just wasn't that great. To me personally, it's not a bad album. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sour was not that great. So she can either progress, stay the same, or decline, which is like, you definitely don't want to do that. Hopefully she at least stays the same with the quality of music, but we'll have to see. That's why this whole frenzy around her is kind of really premature. And I think that people are realizing that with Billie, like, kind of the frenzy around her was a little premature considering what she's given us now, which is kind of the same thing. She's not giving anything new, anything different, anything creative. Or I wouldn't say not anything creative. It's just not, I don't know. I don't know where you want to put her. I don't know where we want to put her. It's just not, it's not that she's putting out nothing that's like creative. It's just kind of the same things. It kind of even seems like, even with the aesthetic change, it's like the same sound. And when we see glimpses of something different from her, we're like, okay, so you can do something different. Come on, Happier Than Ever, that song, I really liked it, and I felt like, oh, even Billy Bossa Nova, like these different songs, I feel like, but then I kind of feel like they sound the same, because she sings in kind of like that same, almost monotone, like she's not really, it's hard, because I want to root for her, but she's making it hard for me, because she's not giving what I think she can give. And I think Olivia Rodrigo, it could go the same way. So this is a lesson. Sophomore albums make the artist. Sophomore albums are really what can make or break an artist, in my opinion, especially when you look at these teenage girls, because like Billie, this was her last chance to really latch onto that I'm a teenage girl, love me because I'm a teenage girl type thing. Now when you're moving into your 20s with your next album, now it's like, okay, like you with the big dogs now, you know what I'm saying? With Olivia Rodrigo, I don't know when she's gonna drop her next album, but if she's gonna hold on to that teenage girl thing, she needs to drop it soon, but she also needs to make a good era and a different era, in my opinion. So anyways, that is all that I wanted to talk about in this video. I know it was kind of everywhere, but I really just wanted to put this out there because I've been thinking about this, and after I listened to Billy's album, I was like, okay, like I was right. Unfortunately, I didn't necessarily want to be right. Like, I wanted to like the album. Shoot, I have this record player where like I want to get a lot of records. Like, I'm trying to get a bunch of records, and every time I go to Target, I keep seeing Happier Than Ever. So then I was like, okay, let me listen to Happier Than Ever, because if I really like this album, then I can get the record, and then I'll have another record in my record collection. But like, I didn't like the album that much. I only liked like 4 songs off of there, so I couldn't get the record because I was like, that's a waste of money. I'm not gonna even want to listen to this entire record. And then I was mad. So I really wanted this to be good, okay? End of story. I really wanted this to be good, and it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And so I couldn't buy the record, and I'm mad about that. So Billy, like, I wanted to give you my money, but I couldn't. Okay, so I'm not a hater because I wanted to give you my money. So anyways, that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Go ahead and comment down below what you think. Any other examples of, like, specifically teenage girls, because I think that this is a phenomenon with specifically teenage girls, like other teenage girls that we could like compare and like contrast and like see like kind of the similarities and differences within their careers. And again, I don't want to like pit women against each other or anything like that. Like, I don't want to do that, but at the end of the day, like, these are just observations that I've made. And yeah, just let me know your opinions down below. Please do subscribe to my channel, turn on the post notifications so that you're notified of the next time that I post a video, and follow me on Twitter. My Twitter will be in the description below. My Twitter will be in the description below. Leilani, like, speak. Anyways, my Twitter will be in the description below, and I follow back. So go ahead and follow me, and I'll try to tweet more on there. I just don't know what to talk about. So maybe y'all could tell me what to talk about on Twitter. I don't even know what to talk about on there. And yeah, that is it for me. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.